Today on the Topping Show, Home Depot announces their largest acquisition ever, coming in at $18.25 billion, saying Bankman Fried stole about $8 billion but will only be served 25 years in prison. Lizzo and Colbert host a fundraiser with Biden, Obama, and Clinton. Louder the Crowder breaks a story. It turns out the YMCA will allow men to change in women's locker rooms. Biden says taxpayers should pay for the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and the feds are already going to give them $60 million to start. DeSantis' bill to remove squatters goes viral, and Bud Light may lose up to 18% of their shelf space thanks to the Dylan Mulvaney controversy. All of that and much more on The Topping Show. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Today's episode of The Topping Show is proudly sponsored by Topping Technologies. Topping Technologies is an IT value-added reseller and services company with a special proficiency in IT security. Heck, I see their founder released twice today. I say he's quite handsome and brilliant. He's me, you see, that's the joke. If you're an IT leader or a business owner, you can reach the team at sales@toppingtechnologies.com. Also, trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Now going over to the business part of the podcast, you have the Home Depot's largest acquisition ever. They're going to buy SRS Distribution for $18.25 billion, which is quite a pretty penny to say the least. Now, everyone on the planet, or seemingly everyone on the planet, has heard of Home Depot. That's where you get a lot of your high-quality tools and materials for home projects, as well as construction materials for building, I would say, pretty much small, medium-sized homes and even large homes, and perhaps a couple commercial contracts thrown in there just to spice things up. So they appeal to the consumer as well as construction workers and contractors. And they've kind of seen the exponential increase in the demand for housing in the United States. Now, granted, right now, the brakes have been put on that a little bit thanks to the U.S. government causing 40-year hyperinflation thanks to the ineptitudes of Republicans and Democrats. It turns out, in order to try to stomp that inflation that they themselves caused, well, they had to raise interest rates. So interest rates for a house are at 7%, which is painfully depressing when you look at the little interest rate calculator and see, oh dear God, I could have got a home for 1% back in the 80s or 90s or whenever. Why am I surrounding a house? Damn it. But I partially digress about my personal financial research on the interest rates for the houses. It's crazy. However, there is an exponential increase in the demand for housing, and with more and more people come to the United States, there's going to be even more demand as well. Now, SRS Distribution is actually a Texas-based company headquartered out of McKinney, and they specialize in the distribution of materials. Now, this is, again, their largest acquisition in history. This comes to us thanks to a little Fortune article. And they noted that this will allow them to step more aggressively into the fast-growing professional builder and contractor business, which, again, makes sense. SRS Distribution provides materials for professionals like roofers, landscapers, and pool contractors. Home Depot, quote, is making a big bet on the housing market that is suffering a severe lack of homes, which has caused prices to rocket exponentially to the moon. They say that the median sales price for a new home in the U.S. has climbed 29.4% over the past 5 years. In the fourth quarter, the median sales price totaled $417,700, according to the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, which is astronomical to say the least. Now, the Home Depot said that while taking the deal into account, it now believes the total addressable market is approximately $1 trillion, an increase of approximately $50 billion. Home Depot CEO Todd Decker said, quote, SRS has built a robust and successful platform that will accelerate our growth with the residential professional customer while presenting future opportunities with the special trade pro, unquote. It looks like they say that SRS has a sales team of more than 2,500 and more than 760 branches across 47 states. It also has a 4,000 plus truck fleet and job site delivery capabilities, which is quite astronomical to say the least. CEO of SRS, Dan Ticker, said, quote, we are looking forward to combining our differentiated assets and capabilities, including our extensive branch network, experienced sales team, robust trade credit offering, and order management system geared at serving the complex project purchasing occasion, unquote. And of course, he continues to say, quote, we believe this will enable us to better serve pros and continue our growing in our large and highly fragmented market, unquote. Which, I mean, I still don't know why we don't have more package houses being constructed. I mean, back in the day, when Sears was the OG, or as the youth might say, I believe it is the original gangster, thanks to the Year Bond Dictionary that I've recently brushed up on, Now, back in the day, you actually get a Sears house. I actually grew up in one. It was a fascinating thing where Sears had damn near everything, including house packages, just like a model kit when you're putting a little car together as a kid. They'd ship you all the materials as well as the directions necessary to construct a house. They'd arrive at your lot, and you or contractor's friends would build your own house, which is pretty impressive to say the least. I'm surprised no one's resurrected that idea. Because again, especially when you're constructing out these neighborhoods, so many of them are so similar. Now, given, again, Home Depot is trying to aggressively grow to the market, and again, that market, I don't see any lack of demand of housing in the next couple decades, especially if you have an increasing population. I mean, the American dream is to own your own home with a white picket fence, and I can't help but think it's going to be a great investment for the Home Depot. And interestingly enough, kind of looking at their stock price or stock ticker, if they go, let's see here. Let's see what their stock's looking at. Jeez Louise. Hindsight's always 2020 when it comes to investing. Currently trading for $383.60 per share, with their 52-week high being $396 and 52-week low being $274. So, geez Louise. So definitely, hindsight's 2020, but yeah, in the past 6 months, their stock has gone up 26.95%. Granted, in the past month, it's only going up 0.79%. Interestingly enough, in the past 5 days, it actually went down by 2.61%. So it'll be interesting to see what the long-term ramifications are for Home Depot. But again, given the unprecedented demand for homes, I can't help but think it's going to be a brilliant move on them long-term. Though, as always, let me know in the comments. It'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting business news, you have Bankman Fried stole $8 billion with his business, and he'll only get 25 years in prison. Now, this comes to us thanks to the New York Post, and perhaps it's just because he made millions upon millions upon millions of dollars in donations to politicians, so that's maybe why it is a 100-year sentence or a 200-year sentence. Now, this comes to us thanks to Ben Bachman or Kochman and Kyle Schitzer at New York Post, and they say that Bankman Fried was sentenced to 25 years in prison as judge rips him as power-obsessed scammer, which, sounds about right. And just as a little summary, they say, quote, a Manhattan judge ripped Bankman Fried as a remorseless scammer obsessed with political power as he sentenced the dethroned crypto king to 25 years in prison Thursday, 5 months after he was found guilty of stealing more than $8 billion from customers from his now bankrupt cryptocurrency exchange FTX, which, again, another reason not to believe celebrities. Every one of those cliche celebrities did some stupid commercial for FTX. And yet, it turned out to be one of the biggest scams in our lifetime. So again, I always am fascinated why Americans worship celebrities, especially with brand endorsements. Unless it's a core competency of the person and they're actually doing their due diligence, I can't help but think, who the hell cares? But that's just me. Now I go down here, they note that judges say, quote, he did it because he wanted to be a hugely political influential person in the country. As according to Kaplan inside the federal courtroom. Bankman Fried is also ordered to pay back more than $11 billion to FTX users, investors, and lenders, but it is unclear how much of that sum he'd be able to pay. Now, the judge delivered the sentence, which was less than 1/4 of the 110-year max with Bankman Fried faced while under a 40 to 50 years prosecutors suggested after the disgraced tech whiz delivered a 20-minute meandering mea culpa in court. Which, yeah, that'll be interesting. How on earth does he repay $11 billion? Maybe he'll invest in something and it'll grow exponentially. But, realistically, this is, heartbreaking for a lot of people who invested because, again, the odds you'll get your money back is little to none. And, yeah, this is probably the biggest business blunder of the century. Well, yeah, it actually is worse. Budlight did lose $1.4 billion in sales, but this guy stole $8 billion, so I'd say that's a little bit worse. So let me know, do you know anyone who actually invested in FTX or trusted that cryptocurrency? As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now going over to the cultural part of the podcast, you have Lizzo and Colbert at a fundraiser for Biden, Obama, and Clinton Now, Lizzo and Clinton have many things in common, such as being accused of sexual assault and adult improprieties, with Lizzo being sued because she allegedly forces employees to do adult things with bananas, inserting them in places, as well as, this is kind of hilariously ironic, Lizzo, famous, she's proud to be, what's the nice word of saying overweight? She very much puts stress on the suspension of vehicles she puts herself in. And she is proud that she is overweight. I think they call them fat influencer. And she, allegedly, some of her employees, she bullies them for being fat, which is so hypocritical. It's almost inconceivable. I don't know anyone who's larger than Lizzo. I don't mean like large in terms of a well-recognized celebrity. I mean physically larger. Now, one of the first people to report on this was Callan Rugg on X-Twitter. And Callan Rugg said, quote, "New, Lizzo performs at Biden's $25 million fundraiser with the liberal elite hosted by Stephen Colbert. Lizzo is accused of sexually harassing her backup dancers, but that doesn't seem to bother the former 3 presidents. One of the allegations claims Lizzo forced dancers to eat bananas protruding out of adult workers' private parts. The lawsuit says things quickly got out of hand. Lizzo began inviting cast members to take turns touching the nude performers, catching adult toys launching from the performers' unspeakables, and eating bananas protruding from the performers' unspeakables. Lizzo is also accused of religious discrimination, racial discrimination, and fat shaming." Unquote. Now, granted, I changed a couple of words to make it moderately family-friendly. You could probably read between the lines. And in terms of fashion sense, I don't want to say she's blind, but maybe just mentally vacuous. Because again, I mean, fashion for men is pretty simple. I mean, as we all know, the best-looking men always suit up. Always. It's just a good staple and default to have. And Lizzo is wearing what appears to be a hefty garbage bag. Now, granted, there would have to be quite a sizable bag to cover the vast amount of square footage and real estate there. And this is her coming out on stage announcing something. Now, I did do a little research. I do not think she is diagnosed with a speech disorder. She's not, just fumbling over her words like I certainly do from time to time if you tune into the show. I think that was an intentionally. Does that sound? I think that sounds intentional. Actually, she wasn't stuttering. So everybody, clap your hands! And in terms of the team who put together the stage, the structural engineering behind that is fascinating because the stage is still sound. She isn't breaking the stage. So that is quite impressive. I'm not sure what type of materials they use. Perhaps they're space age, but that's pretty impressive construction. And kudos to the people that do, because again, these aren't structures that are traditionally, there forever. They're a temporary thing where you put them up for concerts. And it did not break. Now, again, it went viral to say the least. It got 1.4 million views and 10,000 likes. And again, people, when it comes to politics, people are saying, "Oh, Biden's out of it. I mean, he can barely think. How's he going to how's he going to raise money?" Well, only a fool underestimates their enemies or opponents in politics and business and sports balls. Never underestimate the opposition. This is a great case in point. $25 million fundraiser. Partially, I believe, because Obama is so much more charismatic, and he's really carrying the team, so to say. And then Clinton, the most hilarious hypocrisy of the Me Too movement. They attacked everyone, but then when it came to Clinton, oh no, he's okay. Which, yeah, almost unfathomable. Although some people might say the age-old saying, if it wasn't for hypocrisy, some people wouldn't have any standards at all. Something to that effect. Now, going to the comments, one of the first ones comes from how too old to feel this damn, or much too old to feel this damn young. Interesting name. This girl says, quote, "How fat do you have to be fat shamed by Lizzo?" Unquote. And Colin Rugg responded saying, quote, "Imagine being fat shamed by Lizzo, crazy," unquote. Now she got 1.9 thousand likes and Colin Rugg got 293 likes. Let's see. Paul Zazupa says, quote, "Joe Biden," and I'm going to alter the word so it's not as evil. So Joe Biden took advantage of Tara Reid and took advantage of his daughter, Ashley. Bill Clinton took advantage of many women. We all know what's going on with Barack Obama, so it should be no surprise that these 3 men would be fine with sharing a stage with Lizzo, who sexually harassed her backup dancers, unquote. And that got 1.3 thousand likes. Robin Valencia says, quote, who wore it better? And it was a juxtaposition of Lizzo wearing, looks like a garbage bag, juxtaposed to the picture of a garbage bag getting 726 likes. And granted, in terms of fashion, Lizzo, I think, is better presented this way. She's also known for wearing basically no clothing at all, with some of the most sheerest materials on the planet, which leaves nothing to the imagination. I mean, you can't, that would not be class. It's known as ass, not the good kind. And that is quite horrifying and scars many eyes throughout the whole world. Scrolling down, you have, let's see here, Florida 1 says, quote, see what you missed at this POS fundraiser? Nothing but crappy speakers and crappy talent. Meanwhile, a real leader spends time with the family of a fallen officer who saves lives every day. See the difference? See why they don't want an election in 2024, unquote. They got 1,000 likes, which is also in reference to Trump going to visit that officer and paying his respects. Let's see down here. Matthew Josh says, quote, Democrats have always been a perverse bunch. They just don't care, unquote, getting 159 likes. JD Sharp said, quote, Obama didn't campaign with Biden in 2020 until October. It's late March. That's how desperate they are, unquote, getting 628 likes. Kevin Nelson says, quote, Biden said it was in battle for the soul of America. He just never said what side he's fighting on, unquote, getting 257 likes. PDB says, quote, Lizzo is the symbol of everything wrong with America, unquote, getting 158 likes. Which, yeah, twerking with one of the, what was it? She twerked with a glass flute from the museum that had never been played before, wearing basically nothing. I think that's a good, sad metaphor for modern society as well. Horrifying, disgusting, mentally vacuous, all of the above. Let's see here. Joe Biden press release parody account says, quote, why go to a murdered cop's funeral when I can party with Lizzo? I'm quoting 609 likes. Salty Goat said, quote, she's a poster child for Biden's America, and quoting 701 likes. Let's see here. Glenda says, quote, Lizzo is in good company with Biden, Clinton, Obama. They all have twisted proclivities, and quoting 261 likes. Shania says, quote, why doesn't anyone ever talk about this? Is Biden at a photo press release or photo op, and he's grasping girls and pulling them close to him, and the girls look horrified and concerned, and really have, and the parent in one case just has an awkward smile, a smile as almost as awkward as Dylan Mulvaney or Ron DeSantis or myself. They're not good smiles, folks. That got 788 likes. Scrolling down more and more. As the youth might say, things aren't going great for Lizzo. Pismo said, quote, remember when Bill Clinton paid Paula Jones $850,000 in hush money, unquote, getting 304 likes? But again, the event succeeded. They raised millions upon millions of dollars. And again, Clinton extremely charismatic, Obama extremely charismatic, both articulate speakers. They're going to be the number, I suspect they'll be the number one fundraising mechanism for the 2024 election. Because again, there's a lot of people who like them, a lot of people who appreciate what they did for the country, some of their policies. So I suspect we'll start to see them more and more as the fundraising mechanisms of the machines start to increase. And you're going to see more and more of these cultural phenomenons where the cliche Hollywood celebrities will all join them. Because it's kind of the culture that they've built. So let me know, it's always a really no surprise we see all these Hollywood celebrities coming together to kind of celebrate these types of events in politics. But as always, let me know. It'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting cultural news, you have Louder the Crowder breaks a story. The YMCA allows men to change in the women's locker rooms. Which, yeah, in terms of marketing, I think the YMCA is officially broken in terms of what they used to stand for. It used to be the Young Men's Christian Association, something to that effect. When were they founded? Let's pull that up really quick for the ADHD, or the folks with ADHD thoughts like myself. There might be a couple of you on the crowd. YMCA, let's see here. They're founded in, let's see, 1844. Jeez Louise, by George Williams. Looks like, I see. Yeah, it's known as the Young Men's Christian Association. So they're no longer men. They're no longer Christian, really. I mean, I can't help but think, what on earth do they still stand for these days? Well, apparently they stand for allowing anyone to use whatever restroom they want. So the story was originally broken by Louder Crowder, then retweeted by Libs of TikTok. Libs of TikTok on X Twitter said, quote, breaking, YMCA sent an internal memo to staff defending their bathroom policies after a recent incident in one of their Southern California gyms. A teen girl witnessed a man enter the women's locker room. She was frightened and complained to the YMCA staff, but nothing was done. In name of inclusivity, YMCA would rather cater to gender-confused men than protect women's spaces and keep young girls safe, unquote. And there's a screenshot that Louder Crowder was able to provide to us. And they say, quote, let's see here. I'll read the first part because it's quite long. Say, quote, it says, Child Watch employees. Hey everyone, I had a meeting with all of the admin staff this morning about safety and what's being done in San Diego right now with YMCA there on the topic of being transgender, and we are all required to tell our staff about the incident as it is a big issue going on right now. If you didn't know, this story was all over the nation's news right now, but basically, at YMCA Southern California, there was a teenage girl in the locker room when a man appearing woman came into the change. The young woman looked frightened, complained to the front desk, but since it is part of the YMCA policy to be inclusive, they didn't find it to be an issue, and so that girl took it up to the city hall and is trying to get the law changed. We're expecting and have gotten already some questions and comments about the issue. So here is what you need to know about how to respond to people. One, the YMCA is a place that stands for inclusivity. That means we want to use inclusive language and not have any vocal, political, or emotional feelings while you're at the Y. Inclusivity provides an open mind, helps prevent discrimination to anyone who might be different in any way, and is a safe place for all. There is an inclusive bathroom here at our Y, and changing stalls available in either bathroom, and any negative instance towards a certain group of people needs to be reported. Again, everyone is welcome. All ages, all races, all genders, sexualities, religions, and other. Thank you. As the wise man once said, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And again, this is a huge cultural phenomenon in the United States, and it's become the default for most major gyms now. I mean, it's been a policy for many years. It's not going viral on social media. I mean, Planet Fitness lost $400 million in their stock valuation in a couple days when it was broke, and the news story broke where you had a man identifying as a woman in the girl's locker room, and a nice grandma came in and saw that, and there was a little girl there, and the grandma goes, "What are you doing?" And the guy goes, "Oh no, I'm part of the community." And she took a picture of evidence. This man shaving in the women's locker room, went to the staff, and the staff actually canceled the membership of the nice grandma, which kind of shows their priorities. LA Fitness also has the same policy of letting anyone choose whatever bathrooms they want, and now it's shown that the YMCA likes that. And again, the YMCA used to do a lot more philanthropic things. They actually you used to actually be able to live there in between if you're in a difficult situation. I understand their service and what they do have changed throughout the years. They've been around for over 100 years. But what do they really stand for these days? It's certainly not what they used to be. Now, it went viral. It got 934,600 views in the first 24 hours when I wrote down the statistics for this. And it got 16,000 likes. And again, I can't help but think, I suspect a majority of Americans don't want these types of bathroom situations. Now, in terms of the people who actually actively boycott, that's really what these companies are fearful of. Because an overwhelming majority of the time when conservatives boycott things, nothing really happens. Not even a 1% decrease in their sales. The only successful boycott I've seen in 10 plus years from a conservative perspective was the Bud Light boycott, which, again, was the biggest boycott ever for conservatives. It's the biggest negative return on investment for business as well, I believe. Dylan Mulvaney, they literally paid Dylan $185,000, and they subsequently lost $1.4 billion in Bud Light sales. Like, that's the worst marketing campaign I've ever heard of that didn't put a company directly out of business. Besides, it's even worse than the Osborne effect, which is a fascinating computer story I'll explain another time. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the comments will be ratioing Libs of TikTok and say, "Oh yeah, maybe, we disagree. We like this policy." Another ADHD note: fascinating how all the traditional media companies, no one broke this story. Fox News, they used to be the cliche. They used to stand for conservative news. After firing Tucker Carlson, it's just, to me, that was a final nail in the coffin of, what do you really stand for? Are you really just controlled opposition? Are you just a wolf in sheep's clothing? Again, I still recommend people check out every news network so you can understand different perspectives, kind of see what the opposition is thinking, what are their ideals and thoughts. And yet the company that's making the biggest breaks to these controversial cultural stories is Louder with Crowder. Which again, they're growing exponentially, but they're not on the scale of these big companies. Maybe that's why they're more effective. But they seem to be one of the few companies that actually sticks to what they stand for, which I find fascinating, where there's so many, unfortunately, two-faced turncoats and charlatans in modern society. Now, going down to the comments, you have Paul Zuzuppa saying, quote, well, it's a quote within a quote, so it'll be awkward for me to say, but I'll attempt it, nevertheless. So Paul Zuzuppa is quoting the article, or rather the memo from the YMCA. Paul Zuzuppa again says, quote, a man appearing to be a woman, unquote. Now his quote, YMCA continues to cancel women by saying men can be women and that women aren't entitled to their privacy. YMCA is saying that a man with XY chromosomes and a penis can walk into a YMCA's women's locker room, get naked, and women need to tolerate this, unquote. I got 1.2 thousand likes, and yes, that is exactly what the YMCA staff is telling people, which, again, if you have children especially, I think that will be one of the biggest points of contention for a cultural perspective, why so many people, I think, will perhaps actually actively boycott these types of institutions or these types of businesses. Now, that being said, how many options are there left? Truth be told, if I was a billionaire, if I had exponential amounts of resources to start new businesses, it doesn't sound like a terrible idea to start a couple of new gyms where that could be your differentiating factor. Say, hey, women, men, we're going to make sure we have separate bathrooms for them, separate changing areas. We're going to have this policy. You're going to feel protected, you're going to feel safe. You will be protected, you will feel safe. That may be a big value add from a consumer perspective, and I suspect many people would appreciate that messaging. Now, that being said, it also would be a momentous amount of capital needed to actually buy the machinery. I mean, a commercial treadmill is $78,000 to $12,000. They're a pretty penny. Well, they're engineered to last quite some time. But I partially digress. Scrolling down, you have Mark saying, quote, the YMCA is no longer safe for women. At this point, do we just concede and give them their own restroom? And then it has a picture of 3 stalls, and it says problem solved. And stall 1 is labeled men, stall 2 is labeled women, and stall 3 is labeled liberals, with the donkey logo. Which, again, when it comes to political logos, that is pretty pathetic for it to have a donkey or an elephant. And I'm surprised why didn't one side pick the eagle or something more majestic or inspirational than a dumb donkey or a stubborn donkey or just a mentally vacuous elephant. Again, politicians are terrible at marketing. You also have Red Wave Press saying, quote, teen girls should not have to share the bathroom with a grown man. 5 years ago, we have called these men what they are, which is pedos. Now the media touts them as courageous and heroes, unquote. That got 1.6 thousand likes. Modern to Severe says, quote, when did inclusive become a catch-all word that excuses bad actors doing obviously wrong things, like exposing themselves to children in the locker room, unquote. Getting 471 likes. Deep X says, quote, time to boycott YMCA. They clearly don't care about the safety of other female members, unquote. Getting 276 likes. Jason Stormchaser Nelson seemed to have done a parody of the traditional YMCA song. I'll read the first couple of lyrics. So he says, women are not safe at the YMCA. Creeps in the bathroom at YMCA. They have everything from predators' own joy. As girls who pretend they're boys, it's time to boycott your YMCA. It's time to boycott your YMCA. You can get your own stall. That's what they tell you at the YMCA. Let the pedos make the call, unquote. And that went pretty viral. Got 629 likes and 23,000 views. Merrick Garland press release parody says, quote, who else is fed up with this shit? Getting 305 likes. Let's see here. Anthony Hughes says, quote, how hard is it to understand men are women, women are men? Wait, stop that. Reverse. What he meant to say is, men are women. Oh, he was doing a parody of it. So he's saying that's the illogical. Okay. Grammar aside, you know what he's trying to say. Old School Eddie says, quote, women's rights and safety seem to be ignored in this woke society we live in today, getting 253 likes. Kaylee Triller says, quote, the Y fired me over these policies in 2015. Horrible betrayal of the members. Like, getting 304 likes, which, again, it is fascinating. It's only now becoming more of a viral moment. Maybe it's because it's election season, so there's more eyes on everything. And it will be interesting to see if this flows into, I'm not sure if you could have a federal law. Because, again, all these are private businesses. Some of them are publicly traded. But I'm not sure what type of federal law you could pass or if it would be applicable to these businesses is these case. In government buildings, you could certainly pass a rule or law stipulation. Now, granted, a lot of people in government would push back on that, but it'll be interesting to see if it will not become a political topic because these are private sector businesses, maybe. You have liberal mediacrat DM doing a sign of the LA Fitness plaque, which LA Fitness, is a real deal in terms of company policy. When they spent money on a placard, I mean, this is just, they didn't just print this off in black and white paper. Oh, no. This is a legit high-quality plastic placard they affixed it to a wall or a door, and it is multicolored, folks. This is, it has the LA Fitness in 2 different colors, which, again, traditionally when you're paying for marketing materials, every time you do a different color, it's another setup, another step for the machine to apply it. So that's big money. And the LA Fitness says, quote, transgender individuals may use the locker room associated with the gender with which they identify, which grammatically I guess is correct, but it seems awkward as hell to say with which, or maybe I just can't enunciate, or maybe a little column A, a little column B. And on that note, now I'm kind of curious. Now, granted, this is about the YMCA, but famously now Planet Fitness is being boycotted, and kind of curious what is their stock doing like these days. You also have Mo Smith saying, quote, inclusive and understanding unless you're a woman or girl who feels unsafe, and clicking 103 likes. So pulling up, let's see what Planet Fitness stock looks like. Looks like it went up a little bit last week. And last week the trend was actually increased. Actually went up by around 6%. In the past month, it's gone up 0.93%. Past 6 months, it's up 27.35%. Now, year to date, they're down at 14.36%. In the past year, they're down 17%. 5-year down 8%. And all time, the stock has actually increased by 243.18%. Although they don't even pay dividends. So if you buy the stock, it's not much incentive to keep it. Now, it looks like the current stock price again is $62.63 per share with a 52-week low of $44. So again, you did have there's a considerable dip in the stock. Trying to extrapolate this. And it looks like, because again, at one point last week it fell by about $400 million. But, it seems to bounce back pretty good, which partially proves my point, what I was saying when the news first broke about these type of controversies and cultural phenomenons. Gyms make all their money in January. Overwhelming majority of the year. That is where it all comes from, because big part, New Year's resolutions. People try to get in shape, they sign up, and more often than not, they don't actually quit. They might stop going, but like most subscriptions, it's usually either difficult to actually cancel, or people just don't have time for it. They just don't care. So it's very similar to gift cards. People get them, but the actual rate where they actually use them is nowhere near 100%, which is why it's a profitable thing for like gyms to have these subscriptions or gift cards for businesses to sell them. So it will be interesting to see. Again, I don't think this is really hurting them financially yet. Again, we're talking about going back to Planet Fitness. Now, when it comes to the YMCA, I'm pretty sure, I want to say they're still a nonprofit. Is YMCA a nonprofit? Looks like YMCA, yep, it is. They have a lot of volunteers. 919,691 volunteers as of 2018, where that statistic took place. That is astronomical. Now, again, nonprofit just means they don't pay taxes. They still have to generate income, they have to generate revenue, so they actually pay the people who work there. They're not all volunteers. So, and again, from a competitive advantage, I haven't been to the YMCA in quite some time, but last time I checked, the machines weren't as nice. It wasn't a premium gym experience. Now, granted, there's a market for darn near everything in life. There is definitely a market for an aggressive price point gym. Kind of feel like that's how Planet Fitness, but I know LA Fitness I think is much more premium, more expensive. But yeah, let me know. Do you know anyone who's actually canceled their membership yet? And do you think that's actually going to be, it'll really hurt them financially and fiscally speaking? They're getting a lot of negative press. I mean, if you just search these gyms, the first 9 to 12 things that are being written about them, reported on them, are about these very culturally polarizing instances. But and we've seen screenshots, we've seen some people showing, hey, I canceled my membership. And that does add up in the aggregate, but how many of them are really canceling? And at the end of the day, will this be a cultural issue to divide people? Will it kind of just blow over and people won't care in a couple of years? I can't but think, as the youth might say, they are more based. And interestingly enough, the first time in generations where the youth is actually more conservative than the median. So it might not blow over. There might be enough pushback where they actually change their policies. I'm pretty skeptical about that because, again, they made their money in January. People have a very short attention span and a short memory. Will people remember this in 7 months? I mean, even if there's a couple of incidents, I can't help but think it's not going to be the top of their mind. But let me know. As always, be fascinated to hear what you have to say. Now going over to the political part of the podcast, you have Biden on a hot mic saying taxpayers should pay for the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and the U.S. government just gave him, was it $60 million already as a starting fee? Now, interestingly enough, one would think either the drunken, not to be cliche, but I was joking, it might be a drunk ship captain who had caused this, which, again, maybe that's dark humor, because again, I believe some people passed for the incident, and obviously that's terrible and it's sad. Now, when it comes to the ship captain, I mean, there's multiple people that are usually involved from a liability perspective, but I mean, you have the shipping company, you maybe have the manufacturer of some of the safety equipment that failed, or the generator that failed on board. You also have the insurance company, because again, a lot of these companies are insured, and insurance is an underwriter. So there are a lot of people who are, in theory, liable for this, where again, they made a mistake, it should come out of their pockets. And again, this is also why would the federal government pay for it? Is a local bridge. But again, we also live in a modern society where the thought is, oh yeah, the feds will just take care of everything. Which I have yet to find an instance where they actually do something quickly, more efficiently, and better and cheaper than the private sector. But if you have an example, I would love to hear it. Now, this was reported thanks to Cat Turd on X Twitter, who, thankfully his profile picture is not accurate in this case, I'm appreciative of that, is quite literally just a cat with glasses. And Cat Turd said, quote, "The bridge collapsed at 1:30 a.m. By 8 a.m. in the morning, all officials had done an investigation and determined it was just an accident. 4 hours later, Biden hit the mic and said taxpayers would pay for the full rebuild. Nothing to see here, pull up my finger," unquote, getting 1.5 million views and 58,000 likes. Which, again, I can't think of a shorter span of time for an investigation. I mean, one would think you'd have to retrieve some of the diagnostics materials from the ship, very similar to an airplane. I mean, you have the black box, where again, that's where all the safety, and ironically, it's actually, I believe, bright orange. So to say, you know, if the plane crashes, you actually see it's a bright orange box, but the term kind of stuck. I mean, that's an instance where you have a device on an airplane that collects all the data, and this little capture device is, you know, very heavily armored, and it's actually protected. And you take that device and you can analyze that data and look at, hey, what part of the airplane went wrong? What instance happened here? And again, modern ships have more electronics on them than, shoot, a data center in some cases. I can't help but think, I mean, it probably would take a forensic scientist a little time to actually just look over this data, because, again, maybe the rudder just had an issue. Maybe it was a false part. I mean, the lights did go off 2 times, and it's, you know, crashing into the bridge and turning into the bridge. Was it just a generator failed and the backup didn't work, or did the main power not work? I mean, I can't help but think, yeah, that was like the shortest investigation ever. And again, the U.S., I mean, we're $34 trillion in debt. I keep driving this home because, again, the bills are going to come up due someday. And granted, might just sell off Hawaii, but realistically, foreign countries will only keep loaning us money for so long, much longer, until they say, when will they ever pay us back? Now, one of the first comments comes from USMC Lady Vet, and she says, quote, "The only difference in a conspiracy and the facts is about 6 months. We will be proven correct. This is not just an accident." I'm getting 103 likes. Let's see here. Scrolling down more and more, you have Ruthie Brown saying, quote, "Shouldn't the shipping company that hit the bridge pay to rebuild it?" Unquote, getting 48 likes. Which, yeah, either them or, again, they have insurance. So again, that's what insurance is for. I mean, not when bad things happen, that's when insurance is supposed to step in and help you out. Scrolling down, you have Rodney Ghost saying, quote, "They can't find the owner of the cocaine in the most monitored and secure place on the planet, but now they know within hours what happened to a bridge," unquote, or ... unquote. They got 73 likes, which, again, the Secret Service is either inept or corrupt. But again, there is a baggie of cocaine found in the White House, which has more security cameras and more security personnel than, again, any place on the planet. And yet they said, oh yeah, we don't know how it got there. So who do you believe? Do you believe the White House security team saying, yeah, we don't know how it got in here? Or do you think they're corrupt because it was obviously Hunter Biden's? Scrolling down, you have Darla Shine saying, quote, Ukrainian driving it, closing the corridor that most of the fuel runs through to the East Coast, and getting 11 likes. Let's see here. Scrolling down, you have Duck Duck USA, which A+ marketing, the profile picture is in fact of a duck with a American top hat, and it has a picture of a train being derailed, and the text says build, and you have a picture of a plane with doors flying off, it says back, and then you have the boat running into the bridge, and it says better, and it has Biden in a wheelchair at a podium say, quote, are you better off than 4 years ago? Which, again, is a cliche thing politicians always say, which, again, is just something you ask yourself. I mean, are you better off? And realistically, how much does the president really control? Some things some things quite a bit. Some teams, yeah, I would argue there's also a cultural decay hurting America as well, which, again, there are ripple effects to be sure. Now, that got 154 likes. King Troll 6 says, quote, yet we don't know who planted the pipe bombs on January 6th, who left the cocaine in the White House, who leaked the Dobbs opinion, Epstein client list, but they can wrap up this investigation in record time, unquote, getting 433 likes. Kyle Becker says, quote, the U.S. government has an incredible pattern of stating things with, quote, 100% certainty before conducting any serious investigation. The truth comes out days or weeks later, and it rarely comports with the official version of events. When the government starts telling the truth, then it will deserve our credulity, getting for 847 likes. You have Planet Memes saying, quote, the government never gets things done that quickly. We can't even count votes in under a week, unquote, getting 572 likes. Let's see, I'll do one or two more here. You have Linda Hates GOP Thugs saying, quote, Republicans bitch if the response isn't fast enough, and now it's too fast. MAGA is a bunch of whiny, complaining snowflakes. Snowflake emoji and melting face emoji, unquote, which I didn't even know they had a melting face emoji to begin with. And, interestingly enough, a contrarian statement, which was interesting because, again, more opinions the better. Life gets a little bit boring when you're in an echo chamber. That got 1.1 thousand likes. Which, again, I would love to see the boat diagnostics. I'd love to see the threat. I can't fathom them finding all that data that quickly. Now, you also have American 357 saying, quote, compared to response to East Palestine, unquote, getting 242 likes. Salty Goat says, quote, the entire thing reeks of BS. There's no way they can make that determination in that amount of time unless it was a predetermination, unquote, getting 809 likes. So overwhelming critiquing of the administration of the government in this response. And a lot of people are speculating, how much will it cost? Now, you also have the Feds start off by giving them $60 million, which, again, that's just a drop in the bucket. This is going to cost quite a lot more. Now, this according to Jake Perez at LinkedIn News, they say the Transportation Department has provided what it calls a $60 million down payment towards the initial cost of rebuilding the collapsed Francis Key Scott Bridge in Baltimore. 6 workers who were fixing the roadway in the middle of the span of the bridge were killed after a container ship wrecked into the support column. The tragedy has disrupted supply chains, forcing trucks that used to transport hazardous materials over the bridge to reroute. Shipping container firms are also scrambling to adjust. Repairing the bridge is expected to cost at least $400 million and take 18 months or more to construct, which, yeah, that is a pretty penny. Granted, thanks to inflation, it's like $5 in 1990 dollars. Kidding, partially. Inflation is the silent thief. So it'll be interesting to see. And if you're in construction, get ready to submit your bids, because this is going to be a huge bidding war, and hopefully it doesn't cost exponentially. Hopefully it isn't exponentially expensive. And again, do you think, again, this happened in Baltimore? Should this be something the city or state pays for, or should the federal government pay for it? Or should the shipping company pay for it, or the insurance company of the shipping company pay for it, or the captain of the ship? Presumably, I can't think. I would think it'd be, the shipping company, or perhaps. I mean, I can't. Even if some astronomically, even if something that you couldn't traditionally account for, like let's say this is a nation-state attack where they hacked the ship somehow. which again, malicious hackers can do fantastically horrifying things. That could be a thing, but even in that case, a lot of these companies get cybersecurity insurance for that very reason. So, I mean, I can't help but suspect the insurance company's probably going to be on the hook, and maybe their underwriter. But let me know, who do you think should pay for this? And do you think this will become a big political issue for the upcoming election? Will it be even a debate between Trump and Biden if they do ever debate? Or is this going to be one of the main things where, oh yeah, the government just writes another check and people forget about it and tax on a couple $100 million onto the already astronomically frightening $34+ trillion debt? As always, be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Other interesting political news, you have Ron DeSantis on a bill to remove squatters going viral. Again, where was DeSantis like 6 months ago? He seemingly had the charisma of Biden or a dead corpse. And a smile as awkward as Dylan Mulvaney or mine. It's not a pretty smile, I know. And yet, in terms of social media, the engagements, reactions, it's all exponentially better now than it was prior when he was running for the Republican nominee. Now, DeSantis on his Twitter account said, quote, HB 621 gives property owners the ability to request law enforcement to immediately remove a squatter from their property and creates harsh penalties for those who encourage squatting and teach others of the scam. We have no tolerance for squatters looking to game the system in Florida. I was proud to sign that bill today and side with law-abiding homeowners, unquote. Getting 315,000 views, which is a little better than his average on X Twitter, and 12,000 likes. Now, again, this is especially pertinent in Florida because, as people have brought up throughout the other comments throughout the week, well, a lot of people have secondary homes in Florida. It's a vacation spot for millions of Americans. Imagine if you invest in Florida real estate, you buy a house there, but you only go there once or twice a year, and you show up and some assholes, or pardon the French, someone just sitting in there. They broke down the door, they put in their own locks, and they said, oh, yeah, my home now. Look at me, something to that effect. And in some places like New York, the person who gets in trouble will be the homeowner. They're trying to regain their property. So this is especially pertinent in Florida. And again, there are some people who don't agree, actually do agree with squatters' rights and theft. Granted, I would also don't think those are the people who are going to be voting for Ron DeSantis. He's also termed out. So in terms of his long-term political career, I still think this is a win, or kind of a hot topic, good issue that is a easy thing for him to address. But let's go in the comments. Maybe there's a couple of contrarians saying, how dare you? There's that little kid from Europe that complains about the environment, though she does fly a lot of private jets. Now, going down, you have Justin George saying, quote, Justin George? That's ridiculous. He has 2 first names. That's almost like cheating. That's just silly. I mean, it's almost as silly as having a name like Topping. Well, I partially digress. Now, Justin George says, quote, once again, another win in Florida. It's time to get this passed in all 50 states. Everyone can contact their state senators, state house representatives, and government officials. Tell them you want to see a bill signed into a similar law, similar to Florida HB 621, common sense. Unquoting 327 likes. You have Valentin Gomez saying, quote, Governor, as a proud homeowner and business owner, I thank you for defending the hardworking Americans that sacrifice everything to make the American dream come true. The squatters don't care about anything. You are the best governor in America. I'm quoting 409 likes. Which, again, she's running for political office. Was it South Carolina? I forget the actual district. I know it's not in the great country or state, so I'm going to debate of Texas, or as it should be always called, Texas. And Valentina Gomez, she's been pretty articulate on social media and staying pretty active. I think it's going to help her out when she actually is on the campaign trail or when the voting booths come into effect. You have A is A saying, quote, DeSantis is the greatest governor in the history of the country, getting 233 likes. You have Jill Anthony saying, quote, I hope someday we will have this type of leadership at the White House. Florida is likely to have you. I'm getting 537 likes. Let's see here. Staying Sane says, quote, if a tenant has not paid for many months and refuses to pay, in my view, he becomes a squatter. Can the landlord get him evicted immediately using law enforcement? I'm getting 42 likes, which, depending on your state, could be more problematic than not. Again, there are a lot of downsides of being a landlord, and culturally speaking, it's fascinating. Most in social media engagements, you see everyone lambasting landlords, saying they're evil, corrupt, they're overpriced, they're price gouging you, and they're just the worst. When, again, it's a huge risk to have someone rent a house. Again, some people trash the houses. Sometimes they're late on payments. I mean, sometimes they do have to spend a considerable amount of money just maintaining the house. I mean, just one roof repair could be $5,000 or plus if you have bad hail in Texas. Again, depending on your insurance, that may or not pay for it. A lot of variables to consider, though. You also have Uniparty Bomber saying, quote, as a Floridian, I've had a hot and cold relationship with Governor DeSantis in the last 18 months, but this is strong leadership. Well done. I'm quoting 106 likes. Scrolling down. Oh, contrarian statement. We found one. Truth or Tweet says, quote, or wait a minute. Interesting. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue waves in their in the name as emojis, which maybe they're a surfer. I mean, probably not. Aha, this person is Democrat mom and animal rescue advocate. Followers, no DMs, no lists, no MAGAs, no DeCastros. And his profile picture is, in fact, of a dog. So it truly is a contrarian statement for someone who would never vote for DeSantis. And she says, quote, fix the insurance problem, unquote, getting 43 likes. Which, again, some of it is due to politics, but also some insurance companies, they're losing a lot of money in Florida because they'll insure a house. A wave will come out and, destroy the house, and they'll pay it out, and the person will build the house exactly in the same spot. Which, again, makes it hard to insure. That's one of many variables or examples of why I think insurance premiums have grown exponentially in Florida. Scrolling down, you also have Dr. Shark Shyam saying, quote, great job, Governor DeSantis. Somehow, these common sense laws are missing in the law book. It's just absurd someone can illegally occupy your home and then have squatters' rights. I'm quoting 42 likes. Autonomous Allison Zone says, quote, excellent job. While other states are abandoning their citizens, you're the ones standing up for law-abiding taxpayer homeowners. I'm quoting 66 likes. Do one more. Chris Nelson, American flag emoji and pine tree emoji? Or is it a palm tree? Well, yeah, palm tree. That's what the vacationers see. He says, quote, bye-bye squatters, a huge victory for all Floridians. I'm quoting 64 likes. Let's see here. Do one more. Chris Nelson said, quote, it's about time. Does DeSantis not know how the GOP works? And then he says, quote, 1, constantly piss and moan on cable news. 2, fundraise off pissing and moaning. 3, accomplish nothing. 4, meaningless publicity stunts. 5, stay in the minority. And it's a screenshot of the Babylon Bee, and the Babylon Bee has an article saying, quote, DeSantis kicked out of the Republican Party for accomplishing too many things, unquote. That did get 89 likes, which, yeah, that is kind of cliche of the GOP to do, disappoint time and time again. I'll never forget, the GOP had the House of Representatives, they had the Senate and the White House, but they couldn't get suppressors off the NFA. So that you can buy a suppressor on a standard 4473 background check. They couldn't even get rid of the NFA, which has been around for nearly 100 years and is an abomination to the Second Amendment. Again, making it so you have to pay a $200 tax to buy something you are is literally in the Constitution as a right, which I find it's morally vacuous to have someone pay for a right, in my opinion. Which, again, the GOP, they could have done it. They had the votes, but the GOP said, nah, we'll give you a couple tax breaks. Which, again, that's nice. Give tax breaks, I'll take them. But where are the other wins? But I partially digress. Let me know. Again, it seems like overwhelming support for Ron DeSantis. Do you think there'll be a time? It'll be interesting. What do you think is the future of his career, or his political career? Because again, he's termed out, and truth be told, he shot himself in the high-heeled boots so hard, perhaps with a .50 caliber rifle, with his presidential campaign. I'm not sure what the future is, but what do you think is going to be his political future? As always, it'll be fascinating to hear what you have to say. Now, going on to the business blunder of the day, you have Bud Light may lose up to 18% of the shelf space thanks to the Dylan Mulvaney boycott, which has been a little over a year now, which ironically debuted on April 1st last year. Not as a joke. Bud Light and Anheuser-Busch, they had their brilliant, she's very proud, she's the first female marketing executive at Anheuser-Busch, Alyssa Heiderchild. She famously said she thought Bud Light was too fratty as a brand, and ironically a picture of her drinking from a beer from a prophylactic in college, also known as a condom in college, went viral. And she said, we're going to make some changes. She certainly made changes. She was accurate in her goal. She achieved the goal. It was just in all the worst reasons. She paid Dylan Mulvaney $185,000 for Bud Light to subsequently lose $1.4 billion in sales. That's almost unfathomably bad. In my lifetime, I've never seen such a bad marketing campaign that didn't put a company out of business. That being said, their sales are relatively down 30%, so they're not going out of business. They have 40 plus beer brands that are global. They're huge. Anheuser-Busch InBev is a huge global company. The stocks basically recovered from the boycott. Sales have not, but she certainly achieved the business blunder of the century and is the gift that keeps on giving when it comes to covering their ineptitudes. Now, this is thanks to Ariel Zilber over at New York Post. And she says, quote, Bud Light may lose up to 18% of grocery store shelf space after Dylan Mulvaney boycott. Now, they noted that grocery stores that stock Bud Light are planning to shrink the shelf space allocated to the nation's formerly top-selling beer, nearly 20% in some parts of the country. Now, chief strategy of Columbia Distributing, Jesse Ferber, said, quote, Anheuser-Busch beers will lose a range of about 10-50% of their space nationwide as resets start. Now, that distributor does service some large names you've probably heard of before, such as Walmart and Target, or if you're a white gal, cliche, Target, which isn't a new thing. They've been saying that since the 60s. Fun fact, I read their book last year. It was fascinating about how they started the company and how they actually used to stand for family values. And some places going to say, let's see, Ferber also said that while the final numbers won't be known until May or June, he estimates that stores will be downgrade Bud Light shelf space by as much as 18%, others as low as 5%. And the antithesis is good news for the competition. They note that Molson Coors Brewing, whose stable brands includes Coors Light, Miller Lite, and Coors Banquet, expects to see a shelf increase space of 10%. You also have Brian Fierro, the president of U.S. sales of Molson Coors, telling Bloomberg that more than 50 retailers have increased shelf space for Coors Light and Miller Lite by 6 to 7% last summer and fall. Which, oh, this is hilarious. They actually have the Anheuser-Busch spokesperson told Bloomberg News that the company anticipates, quote, small shifts across brands, unquote. Yeah, the main brand that you destroyed, Bud Light. I mean, again, they have 40 plus beer brands in their portfolio. On average, Budweiser, that sales down 12 to 13% compared to the year before prior to the controversy. Then you have Michelob Ultra down like 3 to 6%, with the remaining 40 plus brands relatively not affected. I think partially because most Americans don't realize how many beer brands are actually owned by the company. Now, let me see here. Looks like in terms of the fiscal reports, Anheuser-Busch most fiscal reports recently said that U.S. revenue declined 17.3% in the fourth quarter and 9.5% compared to the full year, or for the full year, which again is detrimental to say the least. And again, one of the instances with retail is you fight for years, sometimes decades, to get shelf space. I mean, you hear all the stories about entrepreneurs trying to break into Walmart, not physically, but actually, break in terms of metaphor for sales. Get that first meeting, get your product on the shelf. It may take years of prospecting, and the negotiations are not easy. Once you get that shelf space out, it's a huge increase. It's life-changing. That's why people fight so hard to get in there. That's why they're willing to discount their prices so much to get into Walmart. And once you lose that shelf space, your sales are going to go down even more. Because, again, a big thing about retail, especially some things that are somewhat considered commodities, the convenience factor is huge. You see it, and the impulse buy is there. That's the reason why candy was first put at the checkout at grocery stores. Candy wasn't selling very well, so they said, well, why don't you just put it there? We'll treat it as an impulse buy. And it was brilliant. It worked. Now candy is at every checkout at every major retailer grocery store. It's because it's an impulse buy. It used to be a cheap price point, which made you think about it having less of an impact to you fiscally. And now they're losing their shelf space. Now, it'll be interesting to see, are they also going to lose, what kind of shelf space will this be? Will it be the cooled shelf space, or will it be the room temperature shelf space? Because again, there's also a huge increase in sales with beverages when it's actually cooled. That's why when it comes to gas stations, the beers that are in the cold section, that's the ones that people are really going for because it's ready to go, which ironically is at a gas station, which makes, it's a little kind of silly. I know people aren't necessarily drinking in the parking lot, but yeah, if you're on your way to the party or something like that, I understand. But again, they're going to be losing that shelf space. It could be the premium shelf space, which again, one of the most expensive spaces in a Walmart is the frozen food section and the refrigerated food section, partially because of the extra increase of electricity needed for it. And again, they're going to have less shelf space to work with. The other brands are getting bigger, and consumers are going to see those brands more on the shelf, easier to buy. It's right there. So this is quite literally the business blunder that keeps on giving. And again, maybe they didn't negotiate right with these grocery stores. Maybe they said, oh, just give us a couple more physical quarters. We'll get the sales back. But I think a lot of them are also realizing that's not going to happen anytime soon. But again, losing shelf space, in addition to all the other issues that are going on with Bud Light, that certainly has to be the business blunder of the day. Thank you everyone for taking the time to tune in today. Again, we're trying to get to 4,000 subscribers by the end of the month, so if you could click that button, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, or comment. It's a great way to give me some additional feedback, letting me know how I can make the show better and better. Lastly, don't forget to take the time to tell your family, tell your friends, tell your coworkers, heck, tell your enemies, tell anyone and everyone. Just stay safe and fight the good fight.